Hey, it's Kevin Lyman, and we're hanging out at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. It's the opening of the Vans Warped Tour 25th anniversary exhibit, and we're about ready to launch upstairs. I think they've opened doors for the show. And what would it be if Hawthorne Heights wasn't just wandering through Cleveland and decided to join us today? It was funny. I just have to say how this all worked out. It was kind of like we put this on, and I think you guys were planning on being on tour.
Yeah.
And, you know, in the infinite wisdom of agents and people sometimes, and even myself sometimes, it takes a band person to actually know what's going on. And I think, I'm not sure who it was, but I know it was one of you guys.
Yeah, it was me.
JT.
Yeah, JT let everyone know that, wait, we're going to be there the same day. How can we be playing down the street and not at the Warped Tour? So
100%. I was like, either way, we're not going to be playing that day. We're gonna at least come here and go to this thing. So we were happy it worked out. So thank you so much.
yeah, it's fantastic. They're out on the road with Emery right now.
Yeah.
And how long you been out, or is this getting started?
This is day 3. So we've only been out in 2 days, starting in Ohio, starting it strong. It's great. You know, we've been friends with them since 2004. So 15 years is a long time.
And I think your first Warped Tour was 2005?
2005.
So you were
yeah.
part of that year. That
the crazy.
yeah, they
the
were
mega
part.
year.
Everyone goes, you know. For me, it was the year that I think we almost kind of collapsed under our own success that year. Because some people, you know, when you have business partners and unfortunately, this business comes about money in some ways. You know, I've always believed it's about culture and spirit, and eventually I was able to figure out how to make a living in it. But people will go back, and I have some partners on this, and they would go, "Oh my God, 2005 was like an amazing year. We sold 750,000 tickets, but it was a scary year in some ways too."
Yeah.
And do you remember some of those shows? Because you guys were
Yeah.
you were right there with My Chem, Fallout. You guys were on the radio. Everything was going on. Records were selling, and that was. You remember some of those? What were those shows that? I know, you know, for you guys being part of that summer was pretty intense.
Yeah, that was for us. It was like the ultimate convergence, and sadly, like we went to Warped Tour almost every year up into there as fans, and but we didn't know the magnitude of like the numbers or anything like that, you know, because you're just watching the shows. So for us in 2005, we thought that was normal. You know, I mean, we're just like, this is what the main stage is, and we don't know what we're doing, but this is a hell of a time. But I just remember having a great conversation with you at the Gorge, being there for the first time, and just looking out and seeing how wonderful everything was, and just you know, that's one of my favorite moments of my entire career. And just like I remember how big Detroit and
Detroit was like Rock and Rio or
and
something.
Denver, and you looked out, and it was a sea of people.
Yeah, those memories. I remember, you know, the Gorge was a place that I got to go to in 1991 with Lollapalooza when I was stage managing. And up until that point, alternative music never played at this beautiful place. And if you ever get to see a show at the Gorge, it's the you know, there and Red Rocks, I guess, are the two most beautiful venues. And I said, well, gosh, if I can ever bring the Warped Tour when I started it here. And we weren't big enough at that point. We were doing fine. We were doing 500,000 tickets. But that summer, it was the combination of TRL, radio decided to play this music for the first time in a large way, and we captured this moment. But the problem with that summer was there was a lot of kids who watched TRL. And TRL, if you didn't know, was an MTV show where people would lay on a couch all summer in hot days and then watch these great bands on TV. And then decide that I'm going to go out one day all summer and go to the Warped Tour. And these kids were not seasoned veterans. This wasn't like the old punk crowd that was used to coming to Warped Tour, being out there, being in the sun all day long and part of it. And they would show up. They would forget to eat breakfast. So I was dealing with people passed out in the front before they got through the doors. Then they didn't want to go to the bathroom because there was hits. You guys all had hits.
Afraid to miss a song, afraid to miss a band. Yeah.
They might miss that one song they maybe even actually knew of that band, but it was like more of a radio show in a weird way. And they wouldn't drink, and they wouldn't eat, they wouldn't go to the bathroom. And I actually convinced my agent at that point that I was going to go get a Depends sponsorship and pass out Depends for people to put on inside the barricade. Wouldn't that be cool? Just wear them. Probably be good for some of you guys getting off the tour buses in the morning, like too. And when you look at those stinky outhouses, which we all have stinky outhouse stories on Warped Tour. So Hawthorne Heights, though, that was we talked about that summer, and there's a part of the exhibit where Avenged Sevenfold was on that tour too, and they were the first band to show up with a smoke machine. And I don't know if you remember, they would haul their smoke machine out every time they played, and it's daytime and it's windy, and but you knew they were going to be big because they had a smoke machine, and there were some, I don't things that we don't come back and the smoke blowing back into everyone's little 10 by 10 tents while you were setting up your gear, and it was just. But they were there. They had a smoke machine. So that summer, and we also had Offspring out there that summer.
Yeah, that was magical.
So it was one of the summers. And I don't know if did Dexter ever take you on his jet with him on any of his?
He didn't, but my wife was pregnant, and he literally came up to me and was like, "Hey, I heard your wife's pregnant. I heard you're freaking out. If it goes down, I got my jet, and I will jet you into Cincinnati." And I that was like one of the most incredible conversations I've ever had in my life, because it's a life-changing band for me. When punk broke in like 94, 95.
Yeah, that was
like a huge band for me.
This whole thing was going on during the summertime because you had, Dexter Holland. They'd sold like, I don't know, 30 million records at that point, but they wanted to be on the Warped Tour, and he's a pilot, so he would fly his jet from city to city, and he would grab like these grungy little kids and go, "Hey, you want to go fly to the next show with me and hang out?" And these kids are like, "Oh my God, I have 50 cents in my pocket." You go, "Don't worry, we're gonna have a party." And he would take bands, and that's like a seminal moment because it was the first time I ever got to, and pretty much up until the last time I ever got to fly on a private jet.
Yeah.
And he would take people, and I remember 4th of July, we were in Fresno, and it was hotter than hell, and we had a day off, and I wanted to get home, and he goes, "Oh, I'm heading back down to Van Nuys," and I actually got to fly on a jet. It was the first time, in 45, 50 years. I was probably in my, that I got to do that. So Hawthorne Heights, though, you went away for a while. By choice, a little?
Just a little bit.
And then, we've got, it's fun. And, do you remember, like, today we have Meg and Dia playing their first show in 8 years.
That's cool.
So,
That's a cool
there was a moment you guys took a little break, and then you came back. And was it just you needed a little time away and go check out new things, or get that job at Jiffy Lube and see how that lifestyle was going to be? And
yeah, I just think, like, when our guitar player passed away, we never had enough time to, like, process, you know what I mean? Because the music industry is always on the go. You're always taught if you're not playing shows, you're not doing anything. So yeah, there was a time where we just didn't play nearly as many shows. We stayed active for the most part, but we just weren't doing things in the right way there for a little bit, because I feel like we kind of compartmentalized the death of our guitar player and didn't grieve enough, didn't work through that enough. And then when we finally did, it was like, all right, we're ready to do this. Like, we should have been doing it the entire time.
Yeah, I think I had that moment a little bit yesterday for myself when I walked up into the exhibit. There's a wall with many people who passed away that were on Warped Tour, and I kind of broke down.
Yeah.
I'm not an emotional person. I'm not allowed to be emotional because I was always that guy that had to say storms would be coming and lightning would be hitting right behind. Dudes, it's all right. We're cool. The show just we're keep going. And everyone, you had to compartmentalize because producing a tour like this and or being on the road, you can't stop. You don't, you just keep going. And there's that moment, and I walked in there because I didn't see the exhibit until I walked in with a tour and we filmed it yesterday.
Yeah.
I gave them, but there was one thing I wanted to say, and there's a picture of a young fan whose mother, when I went to USC, emailed me right away and said, "Please come see me." It was her son on that photo. And she said he loved the Warped Tour. It inspired him to surf, skate, write music and everything. Yeah. And he was hit by lightning in California. And it hit me, and I said, that's the only thing I said that needed to be there. And then I started reading the list yesterday, and I was like, kind of broke down because you finally was able to emotionally release. And we can't emotionally release because whatever's going on in your personal lives, it could be families and things. And as I changed more from a peer, running around jumping bikes, and I think you were in the crossovers when I was starting to become an adult. I wasn't being, when I was hanging out with Pennywise, those were my friends, and we were looking knuckleheads. And then I was transferring over to be more of a peer. Or, I wasn't a peer anymore. I was a disciplinarian or a mentor.
Yeah.
And you go through that. And I walked in there. And so taking that time off allowed you to feel normal, probably.
Definitely.
To go through some normal things. And I think so often because you have to get on stage. You have to be ready to go. And whatever there's in your life at that moment has to be let go while you're on stage. You have to give your fans everything whatever crap's going on in your life. You might have problems at home, or you might have a family member that's sick, your parents are suffering, or your friends are suffering. So, it's always been a big part. I know you guys have been part of the community and trying to make things better and always trying to make things better for other artists now. Do you find yourself sometimes mentoring other artists now after all this time?
Definitely. Definitely. We have conversations every day with the bands that we're on tour with, or like just friends in general, and just being like, man, after 15 years, you got to take a break every once in a while and just, if you're going through something, sometimes you got to tell the rest of your band, hey, can we just not do this one time? Can I just have a little bit of time before it gets too late? Because when you're living out of a van, eating at gas stations, it's just unhealthy. It can be
except on the Warped Tour, you actually got fed pretty good, right?
We did. Actually, we did. Yeah.
That was the one thing. When we started Warped Tour, the food was the worst in the planet. It was garbage, and it really was. And then Shelley, and this is everyone knows Shelley. Yeah. Shelley's your best friend on Warped Tour, right? There's one person you make friends with is Shelley, because she grabbed on to Warped Tour and said, I can do better. And that's what we try to do with everyone, from bands and crew, everything. And she grabbed on to do better, and she created the catering company on Warped Tour, Tada Catering. And Tada Catering is now the largest catering company in California. They do Coachella, they do the Forum, they do Staples Center, they do the Greek. So we talk about bands' careers, but we also, talk a lot about the people who found their place in that parking lot.
It really is. We've played a lot of different festivals. It's pretty damn good. Feeding so many different people with so many different dietary restrictions and stuff like that.
The only time I broke down, I know we got to wrap it up, move on, let you get upstairs for the show. But what ended up happening was we have meat eaters, we have vegetarians, we even went to vegan chefs on the Warped Tour, and some kid walked up to me and goes, I don't see enough gluten-free options. And I go, gluten-free options? Like, go up there, eat. He goes, no, my contract says I need more gluten-free options. I says, go get your contract so I can make you eat it, because I'm pretty sure that's gluten-free. So that was the last time I ever saw him come back to the thing, because he said I signed a contract that he'd have more gluten-free options. So it is really cool to have you guys here. I know we crossed paths and we've had a long history together. And when it was awesome, as JT, because I'd hate to have come to town and picked up the paper and see, oh, Hawthorne Heights playing right down the street, and you wouldn't be part of the celebration of 25 years of Warped Tour. And you've been a big part of it. And thank you for coming out. And I'm looking forward to catch out a set. This is going to be one of those rare days where once we're all done in the hair, I get to go up and listen to the bands.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for having us, and congrats for how wonderful this moment is for you, and thanks for letting us be a part of it. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And we're at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame 25th anniversary of Warped Tour exhibit opening here, and the concert's about ready to get going upstairs.